Alright YouTube, time for a Styxhexenhammer garden update. If I sound stuffed up, it's because I am. The allergen count right now is through the roof. I was going to make political videos earlier. I'll get to that later. You can see the cabbage is doing well. Everything just got freshly watered, so it's nice and puffy. Nice Swiss chard, this sunflower randomly growing. Brussels sprouts over there doing well. There's some Nicotiana. Any bare spots in here, I'm just leaving the Nicotiana to bloom, because it'll look nice. And those zucchini back there are already leafing out as well, so those will be fine also. You can see all the perennials and so forth doing well. Some cucumber, some beets and beans over here as before. Those are all doing fairly well. You can't really hurt. The only thing that can stop beans is they get munched down by a predator. There's a fennel plant actually growing in there. I planted those, I think, a little bit too early in the spring, so some of them got kind of fucked. You can see all the squash is doing well, other than this little clump right here. I don't know what its problem is. All the zucchini are all doing fine. Most of the spaghetti squash are fine. I guess those are just areas of low nutrients and high nutrient zones. But we got some, of course, cucumber plants coming through. More came up here, so I had to put stakes in. Those are beginning to leaf out. Those will do fine. All those I expect to grow fairly well. This middle tomato is actually at the first little rung there. Pretty good indicator we're going to get some good tomatoes. And actually all the collards have perked up and started to grow much more quickly than they were before. I was actually worried that they were going to do that thing plants occasionally do where they sort of stall out, stay dwarven forever. Unlike the lettuce, which didn't do very well this year. I think the soil here is actually a little bit too tough for it to break through because I added so much cow shit. So I think I actually added a little too much. Next year I'm just going to add a little bit of compost to things. No cow shit, just a few bags of compost to each bed, just to sort of buff them up a little bit. Because actually some of the greens apparently do better on much thinner soil and break through it more easily. But we got some broccoli plants growing in here as well, which is good because I've never been able to get it to grow properly before. That needs apparently tougher soil, something with more nutrients, more dense. All the beans and corn in these 4 rows. I know several people said they're too close together. I've never had that problem. Honestly, growing it this close together doesn't pose a challenge for me. It grows huge either way, so I'm just going to put it in there and not really care. It doesn't seem to do anything wrong. All the chamomile. I already picked down all these chamomile plants only 4 days ago, and they're already covered in blossoms again. I've got 2 or 3 boxes of tea worth of chamomile already dried, and I think later today I'm going to pick that much a second time. You can see the lily bush, which is really 9 lily plants were planted there about 8 years ago, and now it's just a giant bush of them. All the corn and beans here are doing fine. Some of them are getting up towards waist height, even though you can't see it from this angle, but that's about how high they're getting. So these will all produce corn just fine. This is actually a less sunny location too. That's why I put the other corn and beans over here. It gets a lot more sun later on in the day. This gets an afternoon sun for an extra hour and a half or so. So I'm thinking that this corn here will actually outgrow the other corn, even though it was planted a couple weeks later. It's already starting to get a little bit more bushy there, getting some second, third leaves on them. So it'll be fine. We'll get corn out both areas. I like a good sweet corn. You can put it in the ear with some butter, some herbs and spices, and just roast it up right in the ears. It'll do fine. All the plants over here. The gas plant's still here. Definitely something that I'm interested in keeping alive. I know it still hasn't flowered, but maybe it will this year. Maybe we'll do that in like October or something. All the beans in here, I didn't water this bed. This is more shady, so it doesn't need to be watered quite as much. But everything in here is doing fine. Everything smells good too because of all the chamomile. We got a giant sunflower started here. This is already waist high. This one's not far behind it. And all the other little perennials, some of which I don't even know what they are. These these plants here came off that one original bush. Now there must be about 20 in there somewhere. So those will be fine. There's some random collard greens growing up here where I just took the seeds left in the pack, scattered them around. Some of them came up, so I'm like, extra collards, I suppose. But yeah, the chamomile is profuse this year, far more than last. there's definitely enough for another picking. What you do, you pick the flowers off literally by hand, or you can use one of those scoopy things that they use when they're doing it on a more industrial level. You pick them off, and then you literally just douse them in water, put them in a bowl or a strainer, then dry them off a little bit with some paper towels, then put them on another sheet of paper towels to dry in the sun. If it's outdoors in a single afternoon, if it's nice and hot and sunny, everything will be dry. It takes a couple days the way that I do it on the windowsill, but that's okay. And it's got antibacterial qualities to it, really, so ultimately it will resist rot either way, but I'll put it in paper bags to keep it drier, and it should be just fine. But yeah, everything's growing really, really well this year, other than the greens. I mean, look at this spinach here. It's all peaked and fucked up. The greens didn't do well, other than the collards. They're fine. But everything else really is a lot more prolific than it has been in the past. I think the cow shit and the compost really did it. So, that's the garden update. And again, I feel a little bit tired, a little bit under the weather because of the insane allergen count. It's going to be even worse the next couple of days. So, don't expect any like morning videos unless it's really early morning. Like I've got insomnia because it's so pollen-y outside. So I just say fuck it, wake up at like 7 in the morning and make a couple videos and then go about my editing. I actually woke up early this morning. I couldn't sleep. It was so bad. Between the moonlight streaming in the window, because it was a clear night, and the moon's angled right into the friggin' window, between that and the allergens, it was insane. I'm an insomniac anyway, but that really pushed me over the edge. And you can see this little transplanted tomato plant's taking right off, doing well. That may look small now, as opposed to the ones that they get them, they start them indoors 6 weeks before they put them outside. I don't do that, I just do them from seed. And they seem to do fine, they always produce. Even this one, which is tiny right now, it's like the size of my pinky, it'll grow. Oh, and one last thing, this is a weed, but it's also edible and vitamin rich. It's also really tasty. Tastes like a slightly salty spinach. It's a type of portulaca, a wild one. It's referred to as pig's weed, among other names. Not hogweed, totally different plant. But it grows basically anywhere. You can see these little plants. I just leave it in when I find it, as opposed to, this stuff pull out. It'll do well. But yeah, the lettuce is, look at that. It's all wilted and fucked up. The tomatoes are fine. The zucchini's fine. The corn and beans are doing really, really well. Got some broccoli finally, and then all the greens they decide not to grow. And that is a burdock plant in the middle. I've got to rip that out. This is the only one that has authorization to grow. I wanted one burdock plant just because I find them pretty. And it's fun to take the little burdock buds and stick them on your clothes, even if it kind of hurts sometimes, gets itchy. I'll leave you with some chamomile shots here. And that's about all. Peace out.